Welcome to But What If We Win with me, Zuri Horwitz. I ran for Congress in Congressional District 5 in El Paso County, Colorado. And the reason I ran was because if progressives get in power, it's very important that we have a plan, that we don't just go there, do nothing. You know, I think we've seen the limits of moderates in office with Karen Bass when it comes to the fires, with Mickey Sherrill, especially sending in troops to abuse protesters. It's not just the middle with Abigail Spanberger not voting for, and with Jared Polis voting to pardon Tina Peters and voting against the Workers' Protection Act, which would have made sure that we didn't have to have a second vote for people to become a union at 75%. And Abigail Spanberger also vetoed pro-union legislation. I am going to say this is going to be a research with me episode. It's about AI, but the truth is I am still learning. And I think right now the best thing that we can do so far is banning data centers statewide, countywide, nationwide, just as a measure to not lose a bunch of energy and water to a technology that I've only found one good use where it was like and it wasn't even that useful. It was just like, hey, maybe I should learn to pay attention and find something in the document. So I know that it can be used. So the two takeaways that I have so far, and I have been following AI for a while through 404 Media, through Power User, through Tech Won't Save Us, is there's two things. AI and big tech are a tool, and who's in control of it and who administers it is in charge of how that tool shows up in our lives. Is it replacing jobs? Is it replacing social interaction? Or is it giving us information? Is it making things easier? Is it connecting us? And I don't necessarily think that fundamentally these tools have to be harmful, but I do believe that if they are operated by people with only a profit motive, they will not succeed and they will hurt people, which is why we are where we are. You know, that's why this is a 3-part series where I go over the types of people that need $1 billion are not people out here adding value to anyone's lives. One of the things that I liked the best is this study by the Rand Corporation, and in the US from 1975 to, let me get the right year, to 2023, billionaires have stolen. Let me just get it all in there. and this is going to be the way, unfortunately, it is. So for 3 decades following World War II, so basically based on the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the GDP in 2023 was 15 times higher than in 1975, and it was 27% larger in 2023 than in 2028. But this only tells part of the story. From 1975 to 2023, inflation as measured by the Personal Consumption Index rose 348%. So basically it just looks at looking at the trends from 1975 to 2023, the top 10% stole $79 trillion from the bottom 10%. So these people are not here to help us. They have made things qualitatively worse. They do not care about a functioning economy. When we look at how they're dealing with farm workers, when we look at how they're dealing with just an economy that means that people can pay their bills and that we have schools that are funded, it's been an attack on all levels of our institutions. So we are going to go through legislation in Colorado, in California, in I think it's Mississippi, but I will check, in the EU and in Australia. So it's going to be a research along with me. We're going to kind of look through. It's not perfect. We're going to start with Senator Markey, Ed Markey, who is about the only senator in the U.S. Senate who has any understanding of big tech. So this is what he is introducing, the Youth AI Privacy Act. And so, yeah, let me go back 1 second. The 2 things that are really important here: AI is a tool and that our privacy is protected. All right, so this is the AI Privacy Act, which would establish safe design features, disclosure requirements. AI chatbots must disclose repeatedly that they're not human. Memory restrictions. This, I think, is really important. AI chatbots may only use recently collected data in personalizing responses to a minor. I believe that this should extend to everyone. Addictive features limitations. AI chatbots cannot include any features that encourage minors' usage of or time spent on the AI chatbot, such as push alerts. Privacy safeguards. Advertising ban. AI chatbots cannot display advertisements to minors. I would agree with that for people too. Prohibition on training models on minors' personal data. AI chatbots cannot use minors' personal data to train a chatbot. I think this should apply to everyone. And if this were to apply to everyone, we would not have to check to see someone's age. We would just make sure that people were equally protected. Profiling. AI chatbots cannot use minors' personal data to profile a user. That should be across the board for everyone. Prohibition on repurposing minors' inputs. Companies cannot use minors' AI chatbot inputs for any reason except to provide an output to the minor or to address safety issues in the AI chat box. Again, this is what I think should happen to everyone. Enforcement. The Federal Trade Commission, state attorneys general, and private plaintiffs are authorized to enforce the legislation. Senator Markey continues to demand transparency from AI companies about their deployment of AI chatbots, and he wrote to 7 major tech companies: OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Snap Incorporated, and xAI, urging details on how the companies will protect their users from manipulation and exploitation. So I feel very good about him. I also really believe that, let me just see if there's anything more from him, but I also believe strongly that it's important that these apply not just to minors, but to everybody. And let me continue looking. And so this is the part that's frustrating. It's going to be frustrating for you. Healthcare, extreme livable future, zine. All right. We're going to go on to other analysis. This is from littler.com. I'm trying to find the exact bill name so that we have it there. It's SB 26-189, and it's an AI law which significantly scales back employer obligations from the prior version and delays the effective date to January 1st, 2021. So let's go and see if I have it open. No, I don't. Apparently these people wanted okay bills. So let's go look at SB 26-189. So we have that open at the same time. Dash 189 Colorado. Because it was okay. Oh man, this is so depressing. All right. So we'll go over it, and then I'm going to just look at, they did a good job. This is a very in-depth piece of legislation. And let's see if it was enacted. Blah, blah, blah. It became a law. But, so this is the summary. It's supposed to create consumer protections. This isn't one of those ones. And I'm going to go to the littler.com. I'm going to see a little bit about Littler. Combines latest in legal strategies and solutions for employers of all sizes. We know labor and employment law. So I'm going to read it. Sorry, this is going to be long. And then we're going to read what the Littler says to just make sure that it's correct. In 2024, the General Assembly enacted Senate Bill 2425, which would create consumer protections and interactions with AI. I'm paraphrasing some things. The act repeals and reenacts those provisions with new requirements. The act defines automated decision-making technology as a technology that processes personal data and uses computation to generate output. The act requires that the act defines a consequential decision as a decision that relates to an individual's access to, eligibility for, or compensation related to education, employment, housing, financial, or lending services, insurance, healthcare services, or essential government services and public benefits. So keep in mind, 2024 had something more stringent, and now it's less stringent. The act requires the development of an ADMT, which is like automated decision-making technology developer that is used to materially influence a consequential decision starting in January 2027 to provide a deployer of covered with technical documentation describing the covered the covered ADMT's intended uses, categories, or training data. So it's just like basically disclosing it, but it doesn't help if it's disclosed, but it's still making decisions. The developers must notify deployers of material updates or modifications to the covered ADMT. Both developers and deployers are required to retain records necessary for compliance for at least 3 years. So again, it's just disclosure. It doesn't change what it's doing. Consumers have the right to request personal data and correction of factually incorrect personal data. So like we have to do that work goes on us. The Attorney General is directed to enforce the act through the Colorado Consumer Protections Act, and a violation of the act is deemed a deceptive trade practice. Before initiating an action before January 1st, 2030, the Attorney General must provide the developer or deployer with a 60-day notice and opportunity to cure the alleged. Yeah, so it's basically like toothless. It's basically like you can say, can you tell me how it made this decision? I think it was inaccurate. And then they have 60 days to fix it. So like no consequences there. So let's look at what Littler says. And let's again talk about who they are, because I think it is important to remember. They are a singular focus on labor and employment law. Littler provides legal strategies and solutions for employers of all sizes everywhere. So truthfully, they should be on the side of to serve businesses. So basically, this is what they're saying. It significantly scales back employer obligations from prior, which talks again about all of, beyond just what is the best law, a huge part of it is how do you withstand all the huge money that goes into ruining laws. The law applies to automatic decision-making that materially influence major employment decisions and requires 3 main actions: clear notice to individuals, a structured adverse action and human review process, and retention of relevant records for at least 3 years. Again, not really anything. The act limits, maybe there's a lawyer will find a way, but I haven't. The act limits liability based on faults between developers and employers, voids certain indemnification clauses, and is enforceable only by the Colorado Attorney General. So no private lawsuits. Yeah, and this comes from Jared Polis, which is not shocking. So it's just basically, so it's not limited to artificial intelligence. However, the new law explicitly carves out a wide range of clerical tools by excluding from the definition calculators, databases, spreadsheets that require human analysis, and tools used to solely summarize, organize, translate, or present information to human review of administrative processing. This likely includes transcription and note-taking tools often used by employers to take notes on applicant interviews. The definition also excludes natural language processing and other ChatGPT-like tools as long as not intended to be used for consequential decisions and subject to an acceptable use policy that prohibits such use. Yeah, again, it's just, okay, this is kind of repeating what we already hear. Yeah, they've got like 30 days. There's not really any penalty, and only it's like impact assessments. Okay, so the Colorado AI Act eliminates many of the most onerous obligations of Colorado's previous artificial intelligence law. So let's look at what the good one was. Specifically, the Colorado AI Act removes the following mandates that the old law imposed on employers using AI as a substantial factor in employment decisions. So like, look at it. Basically, it's nothing. It's just like, tell me you're using it or not. Tell me how it's using it. If you feel like it's not good or not right, then like tell the Attorney General and they'll get 60 days too. So, what it does get rid of, the teeth that it gets rid of, are reporting findings of discriminatory outcomes to the Colorado Attorney General, conducting impact assessments, implementing a risk management policy and program, conducting annual reviews of AI tools, posting or updating privacy policies to describe the use of AI tools, providing notice when interacting with an AI system, and affirmatively avoiding algorithmic discrimination. Instead, the COAI Act relies on a prohibition on violating existing state and federal anti-discrimination laws. It's the third one that has been, enacted, joining California and New York City. But again, And like other laws, such as Illinois' AI provision in its human rights law, only requires notice for the use of AI in employment decisions. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey. I know it is a lot, but I think it's really important that we kind of know where we stand, and that it's just going to take time to like look at the atmosphere and figure out like what's really happening here. So we got the littler one, and we got Ed Markey, and we see how it kind of got hollowed out, and you kind of see how when you have somebody like Jared Polis, who is worth, I think 100 million. Let me see how much he's worth. You kind of see, oh my God, he's estimated to be worth about, I hate it when they call themselves philanthropists, when they stop people from just getting paid normal amounts of money. He's estimated to be worth 122.6 million at that time in like 2008. So we don't know exactly how much he's worth. Let's see. I think it's important. With a reported net worth of $400 million, no one earned that amount of money, but it also does tell you that guy is not going to do anything that will help employees. And we've seen that, and he hasn't. All right. So that was that. Let's look at some more Colorado legislation. Consumer protections for artificial intelligence. Let's see how far it got. This had Robert Rodriguez, Brianna Titone, and Manny Rutinel on it. I say the people, it became law. So we'll see what it is. On and after February 1st, 2026, the act requires a developer of a high-risk artificial intelligence system to use reasonable care to protect consumers from any known or reasonably foreseeable risks of algorithmic discrimination in the high-risk system. There is a rebuttal presumable that a developer used responsible care if the developer complied with the specific provisions in the act, including making available. Let me just see if it was enacted. This is from 2024, so interesting. So we're just learning together. I don't know enough, but let's just read through. Making available to a deployer of the high-risk system a statement disclosing specific information about the high-risk system, making available to a deployer of the high-risk system information and documentation necessary to complete an impact assessment of the high-risk system, making a publicly available statement summarizing the types of high-risk systems. Okay, this is just disclosure. I know disclosing to the Attorney General and known deployers or other developers of the high-risk system any known or reasonably foreseeable risks of algorithmic discrimination. Oh, so this is what passed. That was good. And now that other one is what we ended up with. So that other one was SB 26-189. And we're seeing what could have been. Yeah. Oh, wait. Let me make sure. I might be wrong. Nope, that's SB 24-2005. I was like, wow, this seems really in-depth. It kind of seems good. Implementing a risk management policy and program for the high-risk system, completing an impact assessment of the high-risk system, annually reviewing the deployment of each high-risk system, notifying a consumer of specified items if the high-risk system makes or will be a substantial factor in making a consequential decision, providing a consumer with an opportunity to correct. So those are some things that are there, providing a consumer with an opportunity, to correct incorrect personal information, consumer with an opportunity to appeal via human review, making a publicly available statement summarizing the types of high-risk systems that the deployer currently may arise from the deployment of each of these high-risk systems, disclosing to the Attorney General the discovery of algorithmic discrimination within 90 days after the discovery. So it also puts the onus on them. It's if they discover it, they have to disclose, not just somebody has to find it and tell them. The act does not restrict a developer or deployer's or other person's ability to engage in specified activities, complying with federal, state, or municipal laws, ordinances, or regulations, cooperating with and conducting specific investigations, which that's a little taking immediate steps to protect an interest that is essential for the life or physical safety of consumer, conducting and engaging in specified research activities, effectuating a product recall or repairing technical errors that impair product functionality. The developer, deployer, or person involved in a potential violation is in compliance with the nationally or internationally recognized risk management function. The developer, deployer takes specific measures to discover and correct violations of the law. Okay. I'm looking to see. Okay, and this also only grants the Attorney General rulemaking authority to implement and exclusively enforce authority to enforce the act. A person who violates the act engages in a deceptive trade practices pursuant to the Colorado Consumer Protection Act. So it was okay. It wasn't like amazing, but it had a little bit more teeth. And now it does not. So we're going to add this in here to my little... Thank you for coming along with me, everyone that does. Sometimes these are better than others, but this is what we got. Yeah. Okay. We got the sponsors. And, oh, here, let me just. Yeah, so it kind of just doesn't do much. All right, let's go look at another one. Oh, okay. Prohibit surveillance, price, and wage setting. This is from Jennifer Bacon, Javier Mabry, Mike Wiseman, and Iman Jodeh. And it did not become a law, and you want to know why? Because Jared Polis, the piece of asshole who is worth $400 million and not worth shit as a human being, would not pass it, because this would was prohibiting surveillance, price, and wage setting. It's HB 26-1210, concerning limiting the use of intimate personal data to make inferences that impact a person's financial position. And so you see, once again, another law about big tech AI screwed over by people with vested interests. All right, let's read the bill summary quickly so we saw what we missed. And I'll also say when something is cut out. Surveillance data is defined in the bill as data that is obtained through observation, inference. And this is another one. This is important to me. This goes towards our privacy. And it got vetoed. Surveillance data is defined in the bill as data that is obtained through observation, inference, or surveillance of consumers or workers, and that is related to personal characteristics, online behaviors, or biometrics of an individual or group, band, class, or tier to which the individual belongs. And this is just the bill summary. The definition of worker excludes federal and state employees and employees of public entities. That is so messed up. The bill prohibits discrimination against a consumer or worker through the use of a price or wage setting algorithm instead of automated decision systems that uses statistical modeling, data analytics, artificial intelligence, or other data processing techniques to analyze surveillance data, the output of which is a substantial factor in individualized price setting. And they took out based on surveillance data regarding used to determine the amount charged to a consumer, or individualized wage setting used to determine the wage offered to a worker. The bill also, I'm not going to go through all that was crossed out because I just don't have the energy. The bill also defines activities that are not prohibited as individualized price or wage setting based on surveillance data regarding a consumer or worker. That's confusing. Okay. It's what isn't prohibited. A person that uses a PWSA shall develop and publish reasonable procedures to ensure the accuracy of the data considered by the PWSA, to allow workers to request and receive information about what data is collected by the PWSA when setting particular wages, and to allow a worker to correct or challenge the accuracy of the data. The bill authorizes the Attorney General to adopt rules to implement and enforce the bill. A violation of the prohibition against individualized price setting or individualized wage setting is a deceptive trade practice under the Colorado Consumer Protection Act, and is subject to the enforcement and penalty provisions authorized under the act. Let's go and look at what the Colorado Consumer Protection Act is, because a lot of these laws are like referring to it, and let's see if it has any teeth. Sorry, I'm fun. No, I'm not. If you think I'm fun, maybe we should date, but you have to be near my age and I have to like you. Okay, let's just read it because it is up there so much. So it's from 2019, and actually Julie Gonzalez was one of the prime sponsors for it. Let me just make sure I have the right one. Colorado Consumer Protection Act. I think this is it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Consumer protection, violations based on reckless increased penalties of certain violations, calculation of damage awards. The act adds recklessly as a culpable mental state for certain violations of the Colorado. Oh, okay. Consumer Protection Act. So there's a Colorado Consumer Protection Act. And this is just updating it. Increases the potential penalties for a violation brought by the Attorney General or a district attorney from $2,000 to $20,000 per violation and $10,000 to $50,000 per violation if committed against an elderly person, and specifies the calculation of potential damage awards in a private civil action. Okay, that makes it a little better, but I mean, with these mega $1 million corporations, I don't know if we're allowed to have class action suits with it. I need to look that up more, but I'm not going to today. But it's good to know. All right. And we will put this into our little document so you can look this up if you ever want to, and I can look this up if I ever want to. Yeah, let's go. Hopefully. So yeah, so that was once again a very straightforward bill that would just not allow wage discrimination in how you pay workers and discrimination in how much you charge people, and they were fine with that. And then this is a terrible bill that I friggin' hate, and I did not pass. Luckily, it was so bad. And we had some local Dems on it, and I was just like so angry. It was a data center and utility modernization. It's like basically like very cute, have a little 9-member group, and then but the biggest thing was so funny. Commit to making a $250 million minimum investment in data center infrastructures. Commit to creating new full-time jobs. And not a number. And let's see if they kept it in here. There was also one. Oh yeah, this is so funny. To incentivize efficient data center development, the program allows a 100% state sales and use tax exemption on qualified purchases to the operator of a certified data center. There were also other things. Let me see if I can find it. I think it got like thrown in the trash because like when we saw it and we saw the people that were introducing it, we were like, I am angry with you. Let me go and let me look it up. Thank you for listening to me. So this we did Colorado first. Oh yeah, I'm not having it in here, but this is the Colorado Sun. But basically it would have given, these people are using our water, are upping all of our electricity and use, which would offer a 20-year sales tax break if they follow more moderate environmental. I mean, it was just a shit of a bill. Again, I believe, okay, so I'm going to talk about something really quickly. It's going to be messy, but one thing that people get really talking a lot about is like holding on to our own data and having it be portable. I don't necessarily think that's necessary. I think the biggest thing is that these tech companies should not be collecting our data. That is the biggest thing, is we need to make sure that tech companies do not collect our data. So we've kind of gone through semi-notable Colorado tech and mostly focused on AI tech bills. We're going to go through California. We're going to go through the EU. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff. Let's just go to the Mississippi social media law. So basically, okay, let's just read through. This is from an NPR. The Supreme Court on Thursday refused to intervene in a lower court decision that affirmed a Mississippi law requiring users to verify their ages before using social media. It's far broader than a Supreme Court ruling just weeks ago that upheld a Texas law mandating age verification to access websites with sexually explicit materials. And again, why am I against this? And this is from Taylor Lorenz. If this happens, they need your ID and your face to verify who you are. And that is not information that I want these companies to have from me. So it requires all users to verify their ages before using common social media sites. And again, this just gives them a lot more of our information. I will talk about how I think part of it is that you should have access to your information. They should not be able to save any of it. That is not for them to save. I think that they can say, are you 18 or older? But I don't believe that they should have access to our driver's license and to our pictures and to our voices. All of that stuff is ours and should not be theirs as data to collect. And it violates. NetChoice argued that the law violates the First Amendment's guarantee of free speech without governmental interference. The monitoring and censorship requirements for vague categories of speech argued limits individuals' access to important information, ranging from university professors' online lectures to statements from political leaders and other creative content. So it's like, if I don't give you my information, I don't get to have access to information. That is not a fair exchange. You can ask me for money to pay for it, but if it's supposed to be free on the internet, you are limiting my access to these websites. And also what ends up happening is smaller websites cannot institute this. Smaller websites cannot safely have all of this very pertinent information to you that is something that people want to steal. Other websites won't be able to do this. So it's only websites like Meta, like TikTok, like Google, who will be able to have this. So what this does is create more of a monopoly. When we can get into that another time, and I'm sure everything will keep touching on different things. Now we'll go into the EU AI Act prohibited use cases. And it was adopted as we know from that last, there was like a big EU report, and then you see who their peer reviewers were, and they were all very, very big companies. All right, I'm going to take a little break, and then I will be back because I got tired. But then we will be back, and we will look at the EU AI Act, and I will try to figure out what changed from beginning to end, because at the beginning I heard it was good, and then at the end I heard that it had no teeth. And then we will look at California, and we will look at Australia's privacy laws. And then we will be done. It won't have covered everything. I will try to get to a conclusion, but yeah, 1 second. Let's go back to the EU AI Act. And this is as it stands and was adopted in 2024. And then we'll go after what was changed. So the Act governs AI technologies that may be developed or used in the European Union, or whose output may be used in the European Union. The developers, importers, distributors, and deployers of these technologies, as part of its phased implementation, the first set of provisions came into effect February 2nd, 2025. So the university's activities will be subject to the Act in limited circumstances. This advisory serves to raise general awareness about the Act and its requirements. So these are the requirements as of February 2nd, 2025. AI systems that deploy subliminal techniques beyond a person's consciousness to materially distort a person's behavior. AI systems that exploit the vulnerabilities of specific groups, age, physical or mental disability, or socioeconomic status to materially distort a person's behavior. AI systems that infer emotions of natural persons in employment or educational systems, creating or expanding facial recognition databases through untargeted scraping of images from the internet or CCTV, biometric categorization systems that categorize individuals or use, based on biometric data, or use such data to infer protected characteristics such as race, political opinions, trade union membership, religious or philosophical beliefs, sex life or sexual orientation, real-time biometric identification used for law enforcement purposes in publicly accessible spaces, social scoring by public authorities where individuals are evaluated based on their social behavior or perceived personality traits leading to detrimental or discriminatory treatment, prediction of criminal conduct by law enforcement based on profiling past criminal behavior or other data that perpetuates bias or discrimination. In addition, the Act designates certain uses of AI as high risk and imposes specific restrictions and governance mechanisms on them. These uses include, but are not limited to, use of AI in certain employment-related decisions, such as recruitment, filtering, and evaluation of candidates, a work allocation, performance, or conduct evaluation, or promotion or termination decisions. And in the following educational applications, any step in the admissions process for education, evaluation of learning outcomes, assessing the appropriate level of education that an individual is permitted or qualified to receive or access, monitoring and detecting prohibited behavior during tests or assessments. Yeah, so they're all restrictions to at least programs or activities carried out in the EU. So let's go and see what it was like before. I mean, it sounds good. I want to see how it was changed. So we're going to do that. That's going to be fun. We are buzzing along. We at least got through the Mississippi thing and some of the reasons. So we'll see what that says. We're going to look up. Nope, not a big fan of this one. There's also a bunch of slop that like overhypes what AI can do, and that is also stupid. Let's see Global Policy Watch. We'll see what it says. EU AI update, timeline, relief, targeted simplifications, and new prohibitions. The postponed deadlines for certain obligations. So that's the thing. The most noteworthy change is likely to be the staggered deferral of certain compliance deadlines. So basically, like, stagger to 2027, stagger to 2028. Realignment, act with sectoral rules. We'll talk about sectoral stuff later. New prohibitions on non-consensual AI-generated intimate imagery and CSAM. Targeted adjustment with practical impact. Use of special category data for bias and detection. Let's see. Sorry, this is so complex, and this is part of why I couldn't just so I'm going to look at Reddit to see what they say. Okay, this is what this person says. I've been watching the AI Act amendments land and hearing the same complaints from the same people. Europe is bending to big tech. The rules are watered down, blah, blah, blah. All those are missing the actual story. The core requirements aren't going anywhere. I don't know. Again, I just don't trust anybody that's pro AI to talk about AI because I'm like, let's see what CNBC says. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find it, and I'm just not finding, like, because I've heard these things as problems. We're going to try Euronews. And the EU simplified its toughest AI law. What changed and why it matters? Let's see if that's helpful. EU lawmakers have agreed to simplify the bloc's landmark AI Act. Supporters call it pragmatic fix to cut red tape, while critics see a concession to big business. What is changing and what could it mean for businesses and citizens? This seems like kind of useful. We'll put it in here and hope for the best. We are back. I ran out of space, but we'll keep going. All right, so let's read about the EU AI block. When the EU's Artificial Intelligence Act entered into force in August 2024, it was hailed as the world's strictest AI law. Almost 2 years later, Europe has already agreed to change it. This is the info I wanted. On May 7th, EU governments and European Parliament lawmakers struck a deal on the so-called AI Omnibus, a package of targeted amendments within a broader digital simplification drive. The goal is to cut red tape. God, isn't that the funniest thing that they love to use? fix overlapping rules and give businesses more breathing room without dismantling the law's core risk-based logic. So what changed? The most immediate impact is time. High-risk AI systems under Annex 3 of the AI Act, covering employment, education, and health insurance, now face a compliance deadline of December 2nd, 2027, delayed from summer 2026. AI embedded in physical products like medical devices or industrial machinery gets more time, with obligations delayed until August 2028. The scope of what counts as high risk has narrowed. Only it keeps getting overwhelmed, but we will keep going. So the scope of what counts as high risk has narrowed. Only AI systems whose failures would create genuine health or safety risks face the heaviest obligations. Tools that assist users or optimize performance no longer automatically trigger the full regime, a change that welcomed by manufacturers but viewed with suspicion by consumer advocates. Overlaps with other EU laws have been trimmed. Whether sector-specific legislation regulates AI functions in aviation, medical devices, or financial services, companies will no longer face parallel assessments under both regimes. One of the more contested moves, machinery has been entirely carved out of the AI Act and is now governed by its own sector-specific regulation. Companies like Siemens and ASML had lobbied hard for the change. So they have like old legislation that doesn't keep in mind about AI dealing with this. For Sergey, at least that's what it sounds like to me. For Sergey Lagodinsky, Green MEP, and one of the Parliament's key voices on digital regulation, it is a warning sign. By having, and if there's a dog yelping in the background, we have a very yelpy dog next door. By having excluded machinery, we're making a first step into fragmenting AI regulation, he told EU News. He pointed to the United States as a cautionary tale, a market where the absence of clear federal guardrails has left a patchwork of conflicting state rules in place of any coherent framework. That is well said. On the one side, everyone is saying how free and unregulated the U.S. market of AI is. On the other side, many don't know which state regulates how, and there are no clear guidelines and guardrails. It also adds one significant new prohibition, a ban on AI tools that generate non-consensual sexually explicit images, including deepfakes, which is good. What it means for businesses, for companies, the package offers more time and less paperwork. So basically it says, but he was pointed about the limits of this kind of legislating. We cannot constantly reopen the legislative process and try to take shortcuts. And that's what's nerve-wracking, is that they just delayed things by a year, but if every year they delay and we never fix the problem, is it going to be fixed? And he's saying, yeah, so that's kind of that. It's not, I don't have a perfect understanding, but it's there, and we kind of got there. It just moved the times. It kind of moved a lot of regulation from being about AI specifically to just being sectors. And what they talk about with sectors is like healthcare is a different sector. This is a different sector. And so it goes into that fragmentation that the US already has. That's my takeaway right now. So let's look at Cal Matters and their look at California's AI Transparency Act, which I think we'll also see again. The companies meddle, they defang. Okay, the California AI Transparency Act requires a person that creates, codes, or otherwise produces a generative artificial intelligence system that has over 1 million monthly visitors or users and is publicly accessible within the geographic boundaries of the state to make available an AI detection tool at no cost. Okay. Yeah. Require other things. Sorry. I'm going to look at it better. Let's see what Brookings says. See if it's better. If it goes in depth. The part of the process is, the problem is, as you see, you'll have one version of a bill and then it will be a different version. So it doesn't always say everything. Let's also go to me, the biggest thing is that we do not have, that I have not seen legislated. The only thing that I've seen is basically making sure is Ed Markey's, which would only apply to minors, which I still don't love, but not being able to take as much of your information to train on. And I think that's really important. I know Taylor Lorenz has spoken about having portability so that we could take our information from one place to another, but I believe that that information just should not be there. And that we should be able to download like what we've put on the platform on its own, but it should not be used information for that platform. It's like you can maybe serve ads, but you can't be basing it off of like all the different ways that they do, which is like scanning your emails and your posts and trying to figure out who you are based on your connections. I just don't think that that should be allowed. So I think I'm going to go and look up Australia child safety law, and I think we're going to call it, I think there's just not a lot out there that is amazing, and I think we're making it more complicated than it needs to be, but yeah, so let's see. So this is how does Australia's, this is from the BBC. The BBC can be surprisingly stupid, so we'll see if it's useful. Australia has banned social media for kids under 16. How does it work? They're banned from using TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, and Threads. They cannot set up new accounts, and their existing profiles were deactivated. And because they felt like it was negative and that they had been exposed to harmful content, which is not great. So YouTube, Kids, Google Classroom, and WhatsApp have not been included. And it only includes whether the platform's sole or significant purpose is to enable online social interactions between two or more users, whether it allows users to interact with some or all other users, whether it allows users to post materials. And some people think that it should also include Roblox and Discord. So how is it enforced? This is the big thing. So children and parents are not punished for infringing on the ban. Instead, social media companies face fines of up to 32 million US. The government says firms must take reasonable steps to keep kids off their platforms and should use multiple age assurance technologies. And this is where it's bad. These could include government IDs, face or voice recognition, or so-called age inference. So basically, it would allow them to like build a profile of who you are to decide whether you're old enough to use their platform. Platforms cannot rely on users self-certifying or parents vouching for their children. Great. Yeah, so it said, so Meta said if anyone mistakenly kicked off could use government ID or provide a video selfie to prove their age. So yeah, basically, yeah, Snapchat said users could use bank accounts, photo IDs, or selfies for verification, which is, again, just more information about you, which is also really funny because the information that they have is not great. So again, I think we need to ban them being able to use our data. And I know that I'm missing stuff. This does not feel like a full understanding. It feels like a lot of this is being guided by like a lot of the legislation to protect kids is being like, and this is, I have to find the paper, so I'll try to find it. But let's see. I can find it. Actor. Yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is apparently supporting some very dubious legislation. Yeah. So yeah, basically he's scared and he's working with the Heritage Foundation. So yeah, so this is the proposed Utah Artificial Intelligence Transparency Act. Let's look at that. And let's, yeah, so this is like, let's look at what the University of Utah says. But basically, which is so funny because they're also passing money for a huge data center, which tells you most likely it's not going to do anything to help anyone. So the Artificial Intelligence Amendments Act, Senate Bill 149, and Social Media Regulation Amendments, SB 194. Let's see what they do. I'll read it. Part of the problem is that we aren't actually regulating any AI. We aren't actually doing anything to protect our privacy. We are not doing anything to legislate AI being used as a tool that I'm seeing. We're just doing stuff to give them more information about our children so that children aren't allowed on social media. And again, if you were willing to have parents verify for their kids, that would be fine. I'm going to say, like, for me, what should be happening is different. What should be happening is banning phones from schools during the day. What should be happening is having tests be in blue books and written down and not on a computer. What should be happening is, less time in front of a computer for younger people. And that is something that we can verify, but not for tech companies to have more information about children so that they can build a profile of kids from when they were very, very young. So this is Utah's AI law establishes the Office of Artificial Intelligence Policy, an AI analysis program, and liability for improperly disclosing or failing to disclose generative use AI, effective May 1st, 2024. Anyone providing services in a regulated occupation must disclose when prompted to using generative AI to interact with someone via text, audio, or visual. I mean, that's good, but I think there's a way to regulate this, which is like there needs to be a person in charge of it. And that there needs to be a way to get to a person if you are interacting with AI. So let's look at SB 149 also requires disclosures when an individual communicates with a chatbot in a healthcare setting. Social Media Regulation Amendment, SB 194. Strengthening Utah's Minor Protection and Social Media Act. The amendment aims to broaden protections for minors using social media. Effective October 1st, 2024, social media platforms must add age verification or embedded parental controls and default privacy centers to minors' accounts, such as mandatory parent-scheduled social media breaks and daily usage time limits across multiple devices. Again, I think parents should have that, and I think things like banning it from schools, that's a way to do it, but I worry about what this means to put these on your computer, put these on your phone, means that they have to verify who is using it, which means that they get a lot of data about who is using it, and that person that is using it is a minor. Taking a page out of a recent book that highlights how social media use harms children and teens. So they're trying to stop scrolling. Motor Vehicle Consumer Data Protection Act places requirements and restrictions on third-party vendor access, storing, and sharing of certain consumer data for smart vehicles. So that's good. So it was a smart move by the Utah legislature as stories emerge about the car companies such as General Motors spying on drivers and sharing data on their driving habits with auto insurers, and that's where they should not be allowed to collect data. That does sound like a good law. Yay, that. Sorry, I got to get back to that page because I lost my track of that. Okay. Public Surveillance Prohibition Amendments, SB 231. Legislators updated the Utah law to account for advances in biometric surveillance technology. The law clarifies under what circumstances government entities can obtain and use biometric surveillance information with a search warrant or in reaction to a public safety threat. Again, with this administration, very unlikely that they're using that in good faith and on authorized properties, including law enforcement property, correctional facilities, critical government-owned or operated infrastructure, schools, courthouses, and airports, basically so many places. Data privacy amendments, the most expansive privacy law of the session, which goes into full effect on January 1st, 2027, and establishes standardized requirements for regulating government entities and creates or updates various state entities with jurisdiction to evaluate state data privacy policy coordination and implementation of privacy protections. All right, one thing I think we need to talk about is flock cameras, and I just think they should be banned. They should not be owned by the government. They should not be out there. Let's see if there's some flock bans. And let me go, I'm just going to add that at the end because I know it's important. I'm just going with GovTech. Let me see. I'll keep looking. I'll try to look for more things, but someone says flock ban is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. So let's go and look. Let's try the EPIC electronic privacy information. I don't know enough about this. Let me read a little bit about it before I quote it. But at least it's doing something. You know, what's so hard with sources is you are looking for answers. All right. So basically, EPIC is about, they are about us. It was established in 1994 to protect privacy, freedom of expression, and democratic values in the information age. So let's see their take on flock cameras. On February 5th, in 1983, a case alleging violation of the Fourth Amendment of the city of Norfolk's use of flock to indiscriminately track residents' movements around town survived a baseless standing challenge and motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim. This decision marks a decisive victory against the warrantless surveillance of Americans. And again, I think this has to do with privacy and the Fourth Amendment. Flock's Safety is a service that installs hundreds of automatic license plate reader cameras in a given area to track the movements of vehicles for law enforcement, neighborhood watches, and other private customers. Instead of snapping a picture, comparing a license plate to a database, and then getting rid of the data, Flock purports to build a massive searchable database of the movements of each car for law enforcement. So yeah, that is bad. I'm not even going to get into it any more than that, but that is very bad, and that should not be out there for people. Again, if we don't have privacy, if something can track all of our movements, we do not have freedom. That is very China coded. So yeah, we have a lot of work. We have a lot of work reclaiming our privacy, reclaiming who we are allowed to be as people, and not having law enforcement track our movements, not having major corporations track our movements, not having major corporations train their data on us or on minors. And I think a lot of the laws that extend to children should extend to adults from what Ed Markey proposed. There's a lot of work to be done to talk about, but, you know, the biggest thing to me is stopping these companies from being able to collect our data. And I know that's a big ask, that's a big move, but I think that's really important. All right, we'll try to have better solutions in the future. Next week will be tax policy. Woo!